Started. All right. So thank you all for joining us for the September StaPH-B talk. This month we have Janice Doss with us from the DC Public Health Lab, and she's going to be talking to you about the training that she's developed to teach molecular lab scientists bioinformatics. So, Janice, take it away.
Oops. Sorry. Get this shared. Okay, it's showing it as black. Does anyone see? Oh, okay, it just popped up.
Yeah, I see it now.
Okay, can everyone see that?
Yep, it's good.
Great. Great. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm Janice Doss, and I work at the DC Public Health Lab. My presentation is From Wet Lab to Dry Lab, Introducing Molecular Biologists to Bioinformatics. So a little background about me. I started at the DC Public Health Lab as an APHL fellow in February of 2021, I think. So I was, this was, in the middle of COVID, and I was supposed to be doing about half wet lab and half dry lab tasks. But as one of the few people who had any bioinformatics experience, which it wasn't a lot, but it was more than most people had. So I ended up doing 100% dry lab tasks. And there was one other bioinformatician working there. Who was training me, and I learned a lot. But when I transitioned to working directly for the DC Public Health Lab in June of 2022, so shortly after that, I started my maternity leave, and then the other bioinformatician left that position suddenly in the middle of my leave. So I came back to chaos kind of, and there was a lot of frustration with people trying to figure out how to run these pipelines without knowing a lot. So there was one wet lab employee who had a little more bioinformatics background, and he was able to hold things together. But we decided in the future we needed to really cross-train more people in bioinformatics so that wouldn't happen again. So the DC Public Health Lab performs whole genome sequencing of COVID, of pulse-net organisms, and CROs currently. We have plans to sequence a lot of other stuff, which is in the works, but wastewater sequencing is really our next big thing that we hope to be doing next year. You can see that COVID has been decreasing, of course, but we're doing a lot more bacterial sequencing than we used to. So 3 years after that initial experience, we still were not doing a really good job in making sure we had a lot of other people cross-trained in bioinformatics. I did have one other bioinformatician working here, but he quit suddenly right as I found out I was pregnant again. So we had another situation where I was going to be on maternity leave, and we needed more people to be able to do these tasks. And then also the employee who had helped out during my first maternity leave found out he was going to be also on paternity leave during the same time. So this became kind of an emergency, and this training became a really last minute thing that had to be thrown together with within a very short time frame. So we had access to some molecular biologists. They were very experienced in the wet lab, but very few of them had any experience in bioinformatics. We have currently really just two wet lab scientists in the sequencing lab, but we are cross-training some people from other units in wet lab tasks. So we had access to those people. And then I also kind of, looked for other people who might be interested in learning these skills as just something to add to their CV. So we did have a few people who were interested, but most of them had not even used the command line before. So I had to be creative in trying to adapt these protocols to people who didn't have the typical background. Also, it was not possible to hire dedicated bioinformaticians at this time because of a hiring freeze and just like funding issues. And we also could not use any kind of really user-friendly commercial software. In the past, we've tried out Terra and Bugseek, and those are great, but if we don't know that we're going to have funding for that every year, it's not something we want to transition all of our pipelines to. So first I had to determine my priorities, which tasks would be able to be performed by these wet lab scientists. We had a limited amount of time to train, and they also would need to continue with their wet lab duties during the training and afterwards. So I just selected the main pipelines and just said, we're not going to worry about anything besides the bare bones. Just run the pipeline, assemble a simple report, and send it out. So we had two protocols that we're going to train them in, the CRO analysis and the COVID analysis. PulseNet is another thing that would be helpful to have additional people trained on, but because that requires certification, we didn't tackle that with the current training. So first, I took the protocols we already had and I edited them to really aim them at people without a bioinformatics background. So removed anything that was relating to anything non-essential, like installation of software or anything like that. I tried to make it really detailed and clear and avoided jargon when possible and explained the jargon that I did have to use. I decided to do the training one-on-one because everybody had different backgrounds. And like some people had used command line, but for web development, some people had never been on a Linux computer before and didn't even know what the command line was. So I wanted to be able to individualize the training. And I also really wanted it to be a hands-on kind of training. So I really just had people sit at the computer and work through the protocol with me just like guiding them and then answering questions as they had them, rather than trying to do something more like a presentation or something that might not be as much like active learning. I started with a survey so that I could individualize the training to each person, and I sent out documents that they could look at before the training began. Afterwards, I gathered feedback so that I could improve the training, and I hope to, in the future, do like some more assignments and individual practice and assessments to see, which tasks they really are like able to do independently. So this is the survey results. So you can see people have a lot of different experiences in their background, but most people did not have extensive experience in bioinformatics or command line. We had 2 people from the sequencing lab, 2 people from the molecular diagnostics unit, and then 1 person from the accessioning unit. Um, Everybody was really enthusiastic about doing the training because they felt it was a really important thing, important skill to have, and something that would look really good on their CV. The most common reasons for their interest was career advancement, expanding their job skills, and then also just to be able to help out the team during times when there's not a bioinformatician available. So we're still in the middle of this training. 4 out of the 5 trainees have finished the initial training. As I said, I also want to do some additional things to really help them flesh out these skills and the assessment, but I have not gotten to that yet. It took about 2 hours to do the initial training. So we would do like 1 hour in the morning of starting the pipelines, and then in the afternoon, we would do an hour of assembling the reports. The CRO analysis included using the command line, downloading FASTQ files, activating the Conda environment, and then I had written a script that like does the sample sheet, starts Phoenix, and then also like assembles some output files because there's a lot of output. It kind of just like takes what we specifically look at and puts it in a summary file, which is then used to assemble the report. So that makes it easier. And then also some QC of just determining which samples passed or failed and whether the run passed or failed. And the COVID analysis was very similar to that. Is there a question? Okay. So the feedback I received was that all of the trainees so far felt that the training occurred at a good pace. I think this was really one of the big benefits of doing one-on-one training. All of them felt that they would be able to follow the 2 protocols with minimal help at least. They did indicate that they would like, some more like individual practice time with the protocols. A lot of them had been pretty apprehensive about whether they would be able to do anything in bioinformatics, especially people who had never used the command line before. They thought it was really scary, and they thought like, I won't be able to do anything in it. So it was really great to see that they were much more confident after the training. I did edit wording in the protocols as we went along. Whenever somebody was confused by something, I would look at it and see if I could improve that. And then everybody was really interested in further training. Some of the obstacles we saw were that some trainees did require more thorough explanations for certain things. Like for certain people, I had to explain the command line more if they had never used that before. Some people had used the command line, but on a different type of computer, like a Mac. And so I had to explain Linux a little more to them. But we were, able to get through those things just by having the one-on-one training. Another limitation is we only have 2 Linux computers, and they're in the bioinformatics office. So people can't just practice whenever they want. They would have to like schedule time with me. I do hope, since the other Linux computer is not being used right now, to try to set that up in the same way that my Linux computer is set up, so that they can practice things using those protocols and have it be the same as how it would be on my computer. Time constraints were a major issue. So finding out that we needed to do these trainings was like very close to when everything needed to be done. Everything, needs to be done by November. So I didn't have a lot of time to develop this training program, and I had to keep it very simple. Of course, in the future, it would be great to do more trainings and train people in more advanced concepts, but that wasn't possible at this time. Another issue was that the trainees are all wet lab scientists who have to do all of their other responsibilities first. Like this is not their priority. So they had to schedule their training sessions around their other responsibilities. And in the future, if they're helping out with bioinformatics, they will also have to schedule that around their other duties. So in the future, I'd really like to set things up so that they can stop by and have some independent practice time when it works for their schedule. I'd like to develop some actual assignments so that, I could say like download these files and then do this to it and then tell me like what was the coverage or, uh, what was whatever, and then be able to grade them on that. And then other assessments like an actual exam where we could really assess whether they're able to do these tasks independently. And then, of course, everybody was really interested in doing more bioinformatics training. So I'd like to set up uh, training for like more advanced topics in the future. So definitely, I can see that cross training is going to be an essential thing in our lab and probably in many labs across the country, just due to funding issues, staffing issues. This is, we're going to have to be really versatile, and people are going to have to be constantly learning new skills and able to adapt to new situations. I do really like the one-on-one training when that's possible. It allows for a lot of flexibility and allows you to individualize the training. And I did like starting small, like we can always add on more skills later, but I think that a lot of people were very apprehensive about they wanted to learn bioinformatics, but they were not sure that they would be able to. They had a lot of reservations about whether this was something that was going to be possible for them because it wasn't in their background. So by taking a gradual approach, you can build their confidence and make them excited about learning more skills in the future. Also, the trainees can start contributing to these tasks almost immediately. And also, it creates flexibility in when you can have the training occur. Since it's a very short initial training, you can do this during very short periods of time. So this can be done during periods of downtime around their other duties. Okay. Thank you. And are there any questions? Okay, we have a question how to participate in these type of trainings. I think that like it's really flexible, like any bioinformatics department can set something like this up. I think the thing is to be really flexible and kind of reduce like the tasks that you want to train people in into smaller chunks. And then just kind of like put out the word like who might be interested in this. I was surprised actually that a lot of people were really interested. Like we had the DC Public Health Lab is small. So just to have like 5 people really enthusiastic about it is, a big part of this organization. And really the training was very simple. So I just took the protocols that I already had and just modified them. And then I created a PowerPoint that was like introduction to bioinformatics, introduction to command line, stuff like that, which I sent to them ahead of time. You could also go over that with them, but I felt that since a lot of people like already knew some basics, like I would just say like, well, just look this over and ask me if you have any questions about it. So it can really be modified to any situation.
Angus, you want to go?
Yeah, sure. Hey, Janice, thanks for the talk. That was awesome. Um, I've done a little bit of like bioinformatics training too, and I was kind of wondering in your experience, how much like skill overlap did you have between the various trainees? And I kind of wonder, like in a broader perspective, like would it be, do you think it would be valuable to have like a basic bioinformatics training module be part of like new hires? Like, you got to figure out where to put the waste in the wet lab and you have to do a little bit of Linux command line here and there. Or is it better to like just do the ad hoc as people need it for what they're working on?
Yeah, I think so. Your first question about skill overlap. I mean, a lot of people had seen bioinformatics and command line stuff briefly in like college courses. Like they'd be like, oh, I did a little bit of this a long time ago, or they used like Galaxy or something a little more user friendly. Um, so yeah, I mean, you could do like you could do it really however you want. You could do multiple people together if you feel like they have similar backgrounds. I did like that people could actually sit at the computer and be doing it themselves, since it was one on one. But let's see. And then the second part of your question was, having a basic training. I think it would depend on the lab. Like if you have a small lab where you really need everybody to be able to do certain tasks, then yeah, you probably would want to have some basic level, or even if you think that this training might occur in the future and just to kind of set them up with some basic understanding. Also, like if someone's going to be working in a sequencing lab, I do think it's good for them to know a little bit about what happens after the machine finishes processing the samples. Like what is the next step? Just like I have to know about the wet lab stuff because I'm looking at the QC and I need to know like what to tell them, like this might have messed up because this looks like this. I think it's good for everybody to have an understanding of the other parts of this process. And we also have a question. Do you recommend Python basics as a prerequisite to further training? I definitely think Python is a good thing to have. I think it really depends on what you're going to be doing, though, because I know I took in grad school like a lot of workshops in like Python and R and stuff, and I don't actually use it that much, but it depends because I don't know, bioinformatics can mean so many different things, and I think some people are doing more coding. And then, like, for me, when I'm trying to like automate things or streamline things, like, I usually just use like really basic bash scripting just because it's easier. But like, I think learn whatever skills you need to learn for what you're going to be doing.
All right. Well, if
I have a quick follow-up, if that's all right.
perfect. No, go ahead.
Yeah, really quick, Janice. Do you have a sense? I know it looks like you taught like 5 people in this, so it's not a huge sample size, but do you have a sense of how many people who are interested in like making bioinformatics like a bigger part of their career going forward versus how many just like need to do like their lab project and that's kind of where they're going to sit?
Yeah, I did have a question in the survey about like what is your or what are your reasons for being interested in bioinformatics? And I had like certain um, pre-made answers that they could select or they could write in their own. And it seemed like there were a lot of people who like completely wanted to change careers, but most people felt that it would be good to their career advancement if they had those skills. So I think like either they're not really sure what's going to be required in the future because sequencing and bioinformatics is just becoming such a big thing that maybe some people are like, I should just learn this just in case, or maybe they want to do kind of, I don't know, have a little bit of analysis skills, but definitely career advancement was something that I think everybody selected that one. Oh, and there's another question. Are people executing the command line code for each step, or do you find it better to have them execute already written Slurm scripts that run several steps? Yeah, I just have like for each of the protocols, I just have a script that actually puts together the sample sheet, runs the program, and then like makes summary output files at the end. So it's very simple. But I mean, I think like in the future for teaching them more advanced skills, it would be good to uh, teach them some tools that are like require you to have multiple steps, and also like downloading and installing software and stuff like that. So I just tried to have this be as simple as possible.
All right. Well, if there's no other questions, I think we're all good to go here. Thank you so much for presenting on that. That was actually super interesting. As somebody who's also trying to implement some genomic epi training, that was pretty useful. So,
Thank you for having me.
yeah, of course. Well, have a good day, everybody. See you later.